What is up, fantasy football fools? The long-awaited season has begun, and we are back with podcast number 1 of the year. Sorry we didn't get a draft recap pod in, but we're going to try and work some of that in with the week 1 recap here. Great to be back. Week 1 is in the books. How you feeling about your team so far? I can only imagine what your answer probably is.
Yeah, we're pretty much on the same boat, I would guess, with how we're feeling. I think my team, so we'll just go to the first game of the week, which was me and Jimmy. The championship game from last year. I came out victorious last year, and Jimmy came out victorious this year so far. But just looking at my team, my team did pretty okay except for my big hitters. Like, my big hitters just stunk.
Yeah, that Amon and Mark Andrews really killed you here.
Yeah, I mean, if they give me 10 more points each, which they should have, like Armand was projected like 19 and Mark Andrews, I think, was projected 14. So if they give me their projections, I mean, I win this game pretty easily. Well, not really easily, but I would win the game, basically. But, that's not how fantasy works. I still feel okay with my team. I'm not worried about Amon for sure. He just had a bad game. Mark Andrews, I'm a little worried about, but not so much. I want to see how he does week 2. But I think I still like my team. I have Rashee Rice on the bench, which is going to get the start this week. I don't know if he's going to get the start over Adams or Devontae Smith, but he was a really good pickup in the 6th round. I think I picked him up, maybe the 5th round. I think that's kind of my sleeper this year. I think everyone, 6th round was just kind of low on him just in case he got suspended. But I'm kind of taking a chance, and it doesn't look like he's going to get suspended.
Yeah, it does not sound like he is going to, or if he does, it's probably not going to be this season. I think that they would have had to make a decision on that already, and it does not sound like that's going to happen. So I think that's a pretty big steal. I mean, he dropped pretty far, I think, in the draft. If that suspension wasn't lingering, I think he probably would have went at least 2, maybe 3 rounds higher than where he was going. So Great pick there. I think that that'll definitely help you out on the receiver side. But Amon's gonna have to step it up a little bit, and Isaiah Likely, what a performance by him to shut Mark Andrews down and show who the new kid on the block is. That was a pretty crazy game by him.
Yeah, and I was really high on Mark Andrews. Hopefully he'll be okay. But yeah, Dak, another low score. I'm not really too worried about. I think his just was. They were blowing out the Browns. That game was kind of boring to watch, but. More high-scoring, closer games, Dak will probably get more than 11. That's for sure. But I do got to give props to Jimmy. I know Jimmy was going back and forth with Xavier Worthy and either Sutton or Hopkins. I think he had Hopkins in there for a little bit. And if he plays Hopkins, I win.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So no, I think he still beats me by like 1 point or less than a point because D-Hop got 1.8. So yeah. But anyway, that was a great start by Jimmy. I'm just going to give him his props now. That was a great start. I was kind of happy actually he started Worthy, just because you never know what rookies are going to do. But I think he only had like 3 catches, but 2 of them were touchdowns or 4 touches. I think
one of them was a rushing touchdown, wasn't it?
Yeah, so he had 3 touches all day, and he had 2 touchdowns. That's crazy.
Yeah. Pretty awesome game by him. That was probably tough to watch for you. And speaking of tight ends, though, rough day for Dalton Kincaid. I know he was a high prospect coming in with some of the pieces leaving the Bills offense. We were thinking he was going to be probably Josh Allen's favorite target, but Josh Allen was spreading the ball around to just about everybody except for Dalton. So rough day by him, but Jimmy still gets the job done, and I really think Jimmy's got a pretty solid team here. I mean, he's got Big JJ in there, obviously a great pick, and he's got Josh Allen, who is already putting together a campaign to be QB1 once again. So never a bad pick to have Josh Allen in there, and I really think that that Dalton Kincaid, Josh Allen stack is going to prove to be pretty good moving forward. But Jimmy's got a pretty solid team here. He might be one to watch.
He's got some good running backs. Pacheco he's the man in the Kansas City, and then David Montgomery, he's going to always vulture touchdowns from Gibbs. And that's always going to be a 50-50 split. But Montgomery, these are 2 really good running backs. Bench could probably use a little bit of help. Shaheed did really well, but, not really. Sutton didn't do well. Elliott, really nothing, except that touchdown. I think he got a touchdown the first I think the first touchdown. But yeah, Jimmy's team starters look good. Tight end kind of with me in the same boat. I think all the tight ends, like high drafted tight ends, all kind of suck this week. So it's kind of interesting to see how they do in the coming weeks. But we will go up to Chris and Mubasi's game, which was another blowout. I don't think we had a close game. Yeah, we really didn't have any close games.
No, this one was a
so this was
pretty big shellacking here, Chris.
Yeah, so Chris's team did really well. If you want to go on to Lubasi's team, because I know you can't wait to talk about his team.
Well, I mean, coming into after the draft, I think we had talked about we weren't in love with Lubasi's team. I know we had some shit to talk about the Stephon Diggs pick, but he pretty much threw that in our face this week. So had we had a draft recap pod, we would have been eating our words, I'm sure, on Stephon Diggs. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns. He had quite a bit of target share. Pretty good week by him. ETN had a brutal fumble on the goal line, which is a huge swing. That's like an 8-point swing right there for Lubasi's score, which really sucks. And Javonte Williams, just a brutal week there. I'm still not in love with this team. I mean, he's got Mahomes, which is obviously he's going to be great. ETN and Javonte. I did want Javonte Williams this year, but maybe I didn't now that I'm looking at this week 1 performance. And then Garrett Wilson, Stephon Diggs. I mean, just I don't know, something about it. I don't love this team, but I mean he put up a lot more points than I did, so it's hard to say too much. His defense went crazy. Cowboys D should be really good all year. But what do you think about this team?
Yeah, I mean, I never get the hype around Patrick Mahomes with fantasy wise. He was the second quarterback off the board. I think he was in the 3rd round, maybe 4th. The 4th round. He just doesn't give you rushing upsides, which is kind of what you want with a high-end quarterback. We just saw Josh Allen, who was the first quarterback off the board. And then you can even see with Chris's team, Jaden Daniels probably like the 12th quarterback off the board, and he scored way higher than Mahomes. And you're just always going to get that rushing upside with some of these guys like Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, kind of. But Patrick Mahomes being the second quarterback off the board, I wouldn't agree with that. And Mubasi was excited for him, so hopefully he does have a good year. I mean, he throws the rock a lot. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I really did want Javonte Williams, like you. I know we talked about that during the draft. I don't know if that was just the Seahawks defense at Seattle that kind of killed them, or if the Broncos offense. I mean, the Broncos offense is going to suck. So I'm kind of glad I might have dodged that bullet, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he got him like 1 or 2 picks before I was going to get him, or at least in the same round. And yeah. I was pretty upset that I didn't get him. But I mean, this is a pretty tough performance here. But yeah, I mean, honestly, 111, it's still a respectable score. So it's hard to say too much about his team, even though on paper I thought I didn't like it. I mean, they performed pretty well. Stephon Diggs looked a lot better than I thought. Jameson Williams on the bench there is looking like he might be a big star in that Detroit offense. So, I mean, this team could prove us wrong and come from behind and do something crazy this year. I don't know.
No, yeah, and T. Higgins was gone this game, but yeah, Lubasi's team definitely has potential. Garrett Wilson looked like a first-round draft pick in the first 2 quarters of that game yesterday, and then kind of just disappeared the second quarter or the second half. So it's just going to have to be kind of working with Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I don't want to say I hate this team, but I don't like it. So I'm kind of neutral with it.
Yeah,
but one team I do
we'll see how they can. We'll see how they can bounce back in week 2 and see if it comes to fruition for them. But I do want to jump to Chris's team because I think Chris maybe gets one of the biggest steals in the whole draft.
Yep.
Cooper Kupp. I mean, I think there are a lot of people, and I could be wrong, that were kind of looking away from Kupp this year, knowing like last year's injury history and all that. It was a rough down year. But man, he looked great.
Yeah, I mean, he had 18 targets? I don't think it was that many. No, 21 targets. Yeah, it was more than
21 targets.
Yeah, and then Puka just got put on the IR, so I think that probably helps Cooper because he really, even if he's double teamed, he's going to be getting open. Just it's Cooper Kupp. So, yeah, that was a great steal, and I just love Chris's team. I think Chris's team is really good. I don't really love the running backs. Gibbs is going to just be a frustrating guy to watch if you watch the Lions game because there's always going to split carries with Montgomery. And Kyron Williams kind of scared me a little bit this year, being a first to low second round pick in fantasy. But I really liked Kupp. I really liked Godwin. And I really liked Keenan Allen before he got hurt too. But he had Ayuk too. So I really love his receivers. That's pretty much what I'm getting at. The receivers, and none of them are really high draft picks either. So that's what is really cool about Chris's team. And then Jaden Daniels is a boomer bust pick. And so far he's booming with 28 points. Chris just had a really good week, and that Bears defense kind of helped too.
Yeah, and I think it is worth mentioning that after the draft, Chris's team was the last ranked, lowest graded team on the board, and I think he put up either the highest or second highest score of the week.
Highest
score of the week. So once again, ESPN showing they don't know anything. I agree though. Chris's team is looking kind of scary right now. I mean, even with the 26 from your defense, like his other guys perform too. Even without that 26, even at a respectable 10 from the defense, he's still putting up a crazy score. This team right now looks like it's firing on all cylinders, and we'll see how that keeps developing over the next few weeks. Even with his flex spot only putting up a 4.8.
Yeah, his tight end didn't do that well either. Just and he's got a bench is good. Keenan Allen, like I said, I don't know how hurt he is, and then Stevenson did really well. And then Mostert had a down week, but he's still, he still was the number 2 or 3 running back last year. So there's some hype around that, and that's just his bench. I mean, I would have loved those 2 as my starting running backs. I kind of went 0 running back this year, and those 2 being my running backs, I wouldn't be too mad at that. And those are his bench running backs, so that's pretty good for Chris so far.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a scary looking team this year. I really do. As much as I hate to say it, Chris already has, I think, 2 championships in this league, and he's making a pretty good case right now to push for a 3rd. So we'll see how that plays out.
All right, we will go to Johnny and Nick's game, and you can start with the winner. How do you like Nick's team this year?
I think Nick's got a pretty decent team. I loved CJ Stroud this year. I think some people were worried that he kind of boomed last year, so he might regress a little bit. But I think he's just a super good quarterback. They added some weapons on that team, Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon, and CJ Stroud had a great week with an 18. I think that's a great quarterback pick. Obviously, Tyreek Hill and Mike Evans, that's a great 1-2 punch at wide receiver 1 and 2. Amari Cooper in the flex, obviously not a great player there because that Browns team just looks absolutely abysmal. But he's got some pieces on the bench that he could play around with, I think, for that. But, I mean, this team doesn't look too bad. I think he's got a solid core here, and he's gonna have a pretty good year, I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. I don't know how. So the running backs, they both did all right. Josh Jacobs didn't do that well, but both running backs kind of scare me, as in not going to be good. I know Joe Mixon had a really good game. He looks like the guy there, but having Stroud and Mixon, I don't like the stack like a running back and quarterback. That's just me though. But Mixon just scares me.
I do agree with that.
Yeah, it just scares me with his age. But if he keeps getting used like he did in week 1, that's going to be a hell of a pick because I think that was like a 4th or 5th round pick. 4th round pick. So yeah. So then CJ Stroud, I do want to say, so this is where I would put like Mahomes because CJ Stroud doesn't really run the ball that often, kind of just like Mahomes, and pretty much Nick got Mahomes, like a Mahomes type player in round 5, whereas Labasi got him in round 4. I know that's only 1 round. But kind of goes off I don't really love that pick. I like it better than the Mahomes pick, but CJ Stroud just doesn't give you anything on the ground, and having a high quarterback like that, you kind of want more upside with the rushing yards. But again, that's kind of just how I look at the quarterback position. But I'm sure CJ Stroud is going to be really good. It's just you have a little bit of risk in that. But yeah, really good team. I like the Hill and Evans. I really wanted Hill this year, like I did last year. And of course, I didn't get pick 2. I think Nick got him at pick 2. No, 3. Yeah, pick 3. So yeah, really good team. I think I play him this week. I do play him this week. I know I actually play him this week. So it's going to hopefully be a bounce back week for me to get a win against Nick, but it will definitely be tough.
Yeah, I think this is going to be another team to watch. Probably say we did see a lot of high scores this week, so we'll probably say that about a lot of the teams here after week one. Overreactions, of course, because it'll obviously be different this week. But yeah, for a week one showing, I think Nick's team looks pretty good right now.
Yeah. And then going on to Johnny's team, who did not look that good. And honestly, I'm kind of worried about this team if I'm Johnny, because Puka just got on the IR. We just said that, talking about Cooper Kupp. So he's out for 4 weeks. Drake London and that Atlanta offense, except Bijan, looked terrible. I think Kyle Pitts actually had a good game too, but Drake London did not have a good game. And Christian Watson kind of got bailed out on a touchdown, like a 2-3 yard touchdown, I think it was. But Burrow had a terrible game. Like, I don't know. If I'm Johnny, I'm definitely worried. He did have a really good pick with J.K. Dobbins on the bench. He looked really good in the game, and I really wanted him this year as like a deep sleeper. So I wonder if he's going to get put in that flex position this week. But I don't know. Johnny's team just did not. And like you said, like, this is all coming from a week one performance. So it's not like if I looked at this team before week one, I would say, it's not a bad team. It's pretty solid. But after week one, the writing's kind of on the wall, and I don't know. It's just I'd just be nervous if I was Johnny.
Yeah, when your highest scorer on the team is your kicker, that's never a great week.
He looked really good though.
He did, and that was actually the kicker that I wanted through the entire draft. I was gonna actually draft him early, and Johnny drafted him earlier than I was gonna get him. So it was heartbreaking to see that happen. But I think that's a great pick at a kicker position. But yeah, I was really high on Trey McBride this year too. Not a great week one from him. That Cardinals offense was just kind of weird. Kyler was running a lot. They were running the ball a lot. James Conner had a pretty solid game. Just not a lot of receiver production, as we'll see when we get to my team, especially. But yeah, and also Joe Burrow. That Bengals offense looked horrendous. I mean, the Pats D looked really good, but that Bengals offense looked absolutely horrendous, especially in the passing game. I tend to agree with you on that. If I'm Johnny, I might be a little bit concerned here. I think Aaron Jones, that's very possibly going to be one of his better weeks. I could be very wrong on that, but I wasn't super high on him this year coming in, new team, and his age and injury history a little bit, but could pan out, but I was not high on him. Jonathan Taylor, I'm surprised at a 10. That's pretty low week from him. I think that'll turn around for sure. But yeah, the receivers, a little bit concerning. Quarterback, a little bit concerning. I don't know. I might be just a tad bit worried if I'm Johnny, but he could also bounce back. Especially, like you mentioned too, that J.K. Dobbins pick. I think that's going to be really good for him. He looked fantastic in that game. So hopefully he can keep that up, and hopefully Johnny's team can turn it around here.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so we will go to your game.
Lowest score of the week, baby. I did win something.
So how are you liking your team? Let me rephrase that. Are you worried about your team?
So coming out of the draft, I did not hate my team. I thought my team looked pretty solid on paper. I definitely missed a few of the picks that I was really gunning to get. DeAndre Swift was honestly kind of a panic pick. I'm not super thrilled about that. He had a rough week one. I do think he's going to bounce back and hopefully get more involved in the passing game, which he was not involved in at all. Obviously, Jordan Love goes down. I'm a little bit worried about my quarterback position for the next few weeks. I also didn't really want Jordan Love, but I wasn't mad about coming out of the draft with him. Achane, I like that pick. He looked great that first week, very involved in the passing game, which we always love to see. He did get a little banged up, which is concerning, but I think he's going to play this week. And then getting to my receivers, who I thought was going to be like the strongest position on my team. I really liked my receivers coming out of the draft. Again, that Bengals offense looked so bad. So Jamar has a pretty down week with a 12. I mean, it's okay, but not great. And then Marvin Harrison, what a fucking performance. I think he had one catch and a 4-yard catch and it's just like I don't know what they're doing in Arizona right now because the passing game was just not there. I think actually Greg Dortch might have had a good game, but the Marvin Harrison pick is slightly worrying me a little bit. I really hope that's going to turn around. Um, yeah, I am. I'm not hitting the panic button right now, but I'm a little worried about this week one performance. Obviously, Deontay Johnson, he's probably out of the lineup. That Panthers offense looked fucking terrible. But I got Jaden Reed on the bench, which is one of my favorite picks this year. And then Laporta, number one tight end. Not a great week. Not a terrible week. Not a great week. So yeah, just a brutal week one performance here out of the team. We just could not. Nobody could score anything big except for HN, which it was hard to watch.
Yeah, if you combined your RB2, all three wide receivers and tight end spot, you get 31 points. And Jaden Reed got you 33 on the bench.
Yeah.
So you did better than half your team combined. But yeah, Marvin Harrison was just he had an open touchdown. I think it was like a 40 to 45 yard touchdown. I think it was actually to start winning the game towards the late of the fourth quarter, and Kyler just missed them. I think Kyler just tried to run. Kyler's gonna have to figure out passing, especially. But even if you look at Marvin Harrison's tape, because I have him in another league, and this dude looks like he's got bricks in his shoes. Like he just
yes,
look good.
He looks so slow. Oh my god. Yes.
I don't know if he didn't play preseason or I know he's having that problem with not problem, but like that legal stuff with the NFL stuff. Like you can't buy his jersey. I don't know. I feel like he just really has a big ego right now, and I think he's gonna get humbled here soon. If not, that week one.
I was gonna say, I think he should be humbled now.
Yeah.
Like that was terrible. He had a brutal drop, also wide open. Like it wasn't a huge pass by any means, but just bounced off his hands, and he just looked terrible. He looked terrible. And again, like I thought that was going to be the best part of my team were those receivers, and they all looked like absolute shit. So we're a little bit nervous over here right now. We got some things to do in the back office. Probably got to move some pieces around, but we're gonna try and bounce back. It's early, and honestly, kudos to Rudy. Rudy had a great week. We very often, I will admit, shit on Rudy's teams. But you know what? He had a great week this week. Even with Christian McCaffrey going down, he goes and grabs Jordan Mason, and he had a Christian McCaffrey-like week. I mean, he basically puts up what you probably expect out of Christian, and Rudy's team looked pretty good this week, I gotta say.
Yeah, and he didn't even need Jordan Mason because Jake Moody got him 26.6 as a kicker spot. Would have beat you without Mason, but yeah, Rudy's team looked good in certain aspects and kind of bad in other aspects. Not bad, I wouldn't say bad, but just like not that great. When you get a 26 from your kicker, your total is kind of inflated.
Yeah, and that's a great point, actually, now that we're talking about that, because I am looking at some of these other players. And
right.
DK had a really down week. Tank Dell. I mean, there's a lot of mouths to feed in that Houston offense. That's going to be probably a frustrating player to watch this year.
Yeah, I feel like Tank Dell is going to be the one that's going to not get fed as often because you got Mixon and you got Diggs who are pretty are veterans and they want the rock, and then Nico looked amazing. I don't know who has Nico, but he looked great.
Yeah, great week one.
So Rudy's team is good. Don't get me wrong, but some of these, I mean, that 126.62 is definitely inflated because of that kicker. But I think DK bounced back. George Pickens looked really good. If they can have some consistency, I think Russell Wilson will give George Pickens actually probably better fantasy output than Justin Fields. But I think I think they said Fields is starting again.
He is this week, yeah.
But yeah, so Pickens is, I mean, yeah, he's 13.5 without a touchdown is really good. Brock Bowers looked really good as a rookie. He scored more points than probably all the top 5 tight ends that were picked in the draft. So I wouldn't call that a steal yet, but that pick is looking pretty okay for week one. But yeah, Rudy's team, again, that's one of those teams that I don't love, but I don't hate. It's going to be interesting to see what this team does in week 2, though.
Yeah, I agree. I also think Jalen Hurts did not look super great, but he still comes
No.
out with a 16, which isn't terrible. But
Mhm.
I do think with Saquon in that offense, we're going to see a lot less of those tush pushes, which could impact that fantasy output from him for sure.
For sure, for sure. And then the bench, yeah, nothing really to write home about. No double-digit points, so actually kind of sucks. The bench kind of sucks.
Christian McCaffrey on IR. That is the bright
Yeah.
spot. He will
Yes.
probably be coming back soon, and that'll be great for Rudy to have too. Even though Jordan Mason stepped in, great.
Right. Okay, so then we'll go to Jeff and James's team, which these two scores are pretty good. 110, I would feel like, is a pretty good score for PPR. You would probably expect a 110, 115-ish to get the win, and then James just kind of went up against Jeff. Jeff had a really good week, and I think okay, so this is who has Nico Collins. I think I texted our group chat that I really like Jeff's team. I think Jeff's probably was my favorite team coming out of the draft. I really like the CD Lamb pick. I would have took him exactly where Jeff would have picked him at number 2. And then the Nico Collins, I think that was the only Houston wide receiver. If he fell to me, I would have grabbed. But the running backs I really like. I like James Conner. He does get injured a lot. But when he's on the field, he's a top, I don't want to say 5 running back, probably top 10 running back for sure. And then Kamara, he's getting older. It'll be interesting to see what he does, but he's still putting out, he catches the ball so much. It's going to be really good for PPR. But Lamar Jackson Lamar Jackson, he's going to get you the rushing output that you want in a top tier quarterback, but he's so frustrating to watch. I watched that was the first game. And like, if you watch that game, I was thinking to myself, like, this guy cannot have more than 10 fantasy points right now. And he had like 20. So it's just like, you watch the game and you think Lamar sucks, but in fantasy wise, he's actually still really good.
Yeah, those rushing yards are so crucial, and he was running the rock that
Yes.
entire game. It just seemed like at least 1 or 2 plays per drive, or at least per like first down. Even he was running it at least once out of those
Yep.
4 downs, and it was he was just rushing his face off. And his passing did not look great, but he still puts out a 25, and that's exactly what you want to see out of a guy like that. So yeah, and I got to agree. Jeff's team looks very good right now. Even the bench, he's got some solid pieces down there on the
Yep.
bench. His starters look good. David Njoku, he did go down with an injury, so the tight end spot is going to have to be replaced there. I don't think he has anyone else. But yeah, this team looks good outside of Scary Terry. But I think Jaden Daniels is going to figure it out. He did a lot of running, and also that was just a tough game for them going up against the Bucks. But this team looks really good.
Yeah, and like you said, Scary Terry didn't have a good game, but he's got Brian Robinson Jr. on the bench, which I really wanted this year. I was pretty down. I know Lubasi really liked Eckler this year, but I wanted the other running back. I think Brian Robinson is the best runner on that team, and if anything, Eckler would vulture some passes. But I don't even know what Austin Eckler did this week. I don't.
He got
think
10.
He got 10, so he did something. So he probably caught a couple passes, but. I didn't really watch that game, but I'm sure Brian Robinson got a touchdown. But 17.9 is a great.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and he even got some long receptions too. So like he's still there for the running or the passing game. But that's another guy that I really wanted because like I said, I want 0 running back pretty much, or I did spend a lot of my draft capital on running backs, and he was one of the late round picks that I really wanted. So yeah, Jeff's team. I really like Jeff's team. He's one of my favorite teams before week 1, and that just kind of proved me right so far after week 1. So we'll go to James's team. How do you like James's team this year?
Well, just like we were talking about Lamar and his rushing ability, James has Anthony Richardson, who also loves to run the rock. But this week, my God, the dude was just tossing balls downfield and making completions. He
Yep.
looked Anthony Richardson honestly looked really good this week. I think if he can stay healthy, that is going to be a potential top 3 quarterback in the league, if not top 1, with his rushing ability. And if he keeps throwing the ball like he was last week, that is going to be a great pick. He just looked so good. And then Derrick Henry, who I really liked coming in this year, coupled with Bijan here. I love that as a RB1, RB2 punch there. Receivers, a little bit shakier. I mean, Jalen Waddle did have a great game, but Miami was just having to pass the ball so much in that game that I think just the targets were there. So he had a great week. But there's just, again, that's just another offense with a lot of mouths to feed. So, but I mean, as a wide receiver too, not bad. Michael Pittman, I think, pretty solid. I don't know about as a wide receiver one or a guy that you want to bank on for big points every week, but a nice stack with Anthony Richardson. I mean, I think on paper James's team looks pretty decent here.
Yeah. Just unfortunately for James, Anthony Richardson just wasn't throwing to Michael Pittman. He was just throwing 60 yards to Alec, whatever his name is. But he's going to definitely find Pittman in the coming weeks. So yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about that. As long as Richardson healthy, Pittman should have pretty good games. But I really wanted Kittle this year as a tight end. He had a kind of a down week. 8 points isn't too bad. But Zamir White, he looked like a bum.
Yeah, I do not love that pick, but as a flex guy, I mean, you can always pop him out for somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't know about that Raiders offense right now, and especially Zamir. I don't believe.
Yeah, I bet him to have a touchdown. I think we both did, and he
Yeah.
disappointed us, so I don't like him anymore. But no, yeah, I mean, 21 kind of inflates this score a little bit with the defense. Great play.
All right, had a brief intermission there. Our video cut out for a hot second, but we're back here. Just finishing up talking about James's team. I think we had just stopped here on Zamir White, talking about how we both hate him because he didn't score us a touchdown. But getting into James's bench a little bit here, I think the Jerry Jeudy pick. I mean, we talked about that Browns offense and just how bad it looked. He did, I think, get a touchdown in this game, maybe the only receiving touchdown because Deshaun Watson just looked like absolute dog shit. But yeah, I don't love really any of those Browns receivers picks right now. That offense just looks really tough. Coming into the season, though, like with the hype around the Browns making improvements on offense, I did kind of like that Jerry Jeudy pick as like a guy who's on a new team. But after this week one, it's hard to have positive thoughts to him. And then the JSN pick here, I really do think that he's going to have a pretty decent year. Another team with a handful of mouths to feed and a great running back. But I think Jackson's going to have a nice – this is a year two for him, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a nice year too. I think that offense.
Yeah, I agree.
Better.
And yeah, I like the Bucky Irving. He looked really good with like the 4 or 5 carries he had. Maybe he had more than 4 or 5 carries, but one of them went like for 30 yards. So that might be a sneaky pick. Rashad White is like I always read before this year that he was like the least productive running back. He just gets a lot of volume. So it'll be interesting to see if they try to nudge Bucky more towards more carries this year. So that's a good little sneaky pick. That I wasn't even looking at, but just after week one, it looks like a pretty good sneaky one. So, yeah, so we'll go to the last game of the week. We have Dom versus Chewy. I think it was after the Philadelphia game, the Friday night game. Lubasi texted the chat that he I don't want to say he was afraid of Dom's team, but Dom's team was looking really strong. And of course, it was looking strong with Barkley and Brown after the games they had. But after week one, do you agree with Lubasi's take?
I mean, it's hard to argue with a 153. I mean, it's the second highest score of the week. We talked about Chris's team at the 155 score and how good that team looked. It's hard to say that this team isn't a little bit scary. I mean, he drops to 153 here. He's pretty much got consistent scoring out of just about every position except for Travis Kelce, which we talked about those top tight ends not having a great week. But yeah, I mean, this team looks really good right now. Tony Pollard, I think, looked a little better than most people expected him to look. His RB1, RB2 looks primed right now. His wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 looks primed right now. I think Kyler Murray is going to get better. I do think that he had a rough week one. Just he was running the ball a lot and not passing very well. But I think I hope that they'll figure it out for Marvin's sake. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean this team looks good. He's got. I mean Calvin Ridley had a subpar week, but he's got Brian Thomas down there on the bench who looked great in that Jags offense. And then his kicker and defense even great week. I mean it's really hard to argue with this one. That's I think this is a pretty good looking team. Do you disagree with Mubasi's take that this is a scary team?
I mean, I like the team. I don't get me wrong. Saquon's not going to give you 3 touchdowns every week. So the Philadelphia, I think he had a problem last year with doing too many Bengals guys.
Yeah.
He had Burrow, Mixon, and Chase, I believe. So this year he just went 2 guys for the Philadelphia Eagles, like on one team, and that's Barkley and Brown. So that's always going to be like, I don't want to say troublesome, but those 2 guys are really good. So they're going to get touches. They're going to get fed. But if the Philadelphia Eagles have a bad couple weeks, like this team is, of course, not going to look as good.
Yeah, I mean, you got to expect too. There's probably going to be weeks where it's going to be a Saquon show, or there's going to be weeks where it's a Brown show, and the other one's not going to do quite as well. But on that same token, I think in this offense, it's a pretty high octane offense, and if Jalen Hurts picks it up from week 1, which I'm sure he will, I mean, they're probably just going to be a lot of points to go around here, and these are, I mean, basically their 2 best offensive players. So I do sort of agree with your take there, but I think in this situation there's probably enough to go around. Whereas last year with his Bengals situation, they sucked cock, so that did not pan out well for Tom in the long run.
Right, and then like Burrow got hurt, so like that just made Chase and Mixon so much worse.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah. So I don't want to say like he's putting all his baskets in Philadelphia like he did with Bengals, because the Bengals was just a little bit more pronounced this year, but he kind of did the same thing this year with Barkley and Brown. But yeah, Pollard had a good week. I don't think he's going to do that. I think that's probably one of his best weeks this year, but it was against a really good Bears defense. So it'll be interesting to see how that Tennessee Titans offense looks. I mean, Will Levis looked like absolute shit. So they might have to do a lot of dump off passes with Spears and Pollard. And I don't know about who had Ridley. Oh yeah, Ridley's right here. So yeah, Ridley. Yeah. So he has 2 Tennessee Titans guys too.
Okay, yeah. Now we're getting into some shaky territory. I just noticed that as soon as you pointed that out. Okay, so we got a running back and receiver from 2 different teams. That is maybe a little questionable, but with Ridley in the flex, he can always pop him in and out. And one thing with fantasy, as we all know, I mean, it's when your big guys such as Kelsey have a down week, you just want your other guys to pick up for him. Obviously, Kelsey's going to have some big boom weeks that are going to pick up when, say, A.J. Brown or Saquon has a down week. I think he's just got pieces in place that this team, it looks pretty good. It's very well-rounded, I would say, outside of having running back and a wide receiver from the same team, 2 different teams.
Well, because it kind of confused me because Ridley still looks like he's got the Jags jersey on, so I was kind of confused. But I knew Ridley was on Tennessee, and that was confusing. But yeah, so yeah, I just noticed that when I was like, "Who has Ridley?" and I was like, "Oh, he's in this flex position." So that is kind of weird that we're seeing 2. And I don't draft thinking about that, but I kind of do in the sense that like if I drafted Devontae Adams, because I kind of wanted Jacoby Myers this year as like a bench stash bench guy, because I think he's pretty good. And I had Devontae Adams, and I had a chance to get Jacoby, but I was like, you know what? I had Devontae. I think I'm going to pass on Jacoby. I don't know who I got instead, but I do kind of think of that. But Dom just seems like he just picks whoever.
Well, it is different. 2 wide receivers versus a running receiver. I mean, it is a little bit different in that sense, but I do agree. I mean, having 2 guys from the same team, it's a little bit difficult because then you're expecting just a lot of touches from 2 different guys in the same offense. And on a weekly basis, it's probably not going to be easy to do. Obviously, it worked out for his Eagles this week, and I do think that offense is good enough that it'll be fine. Tennessee, on the other hand, maybe not.
Right. All right, so then we'll go to the bench. Not really anything to write home about. Brian Thomas did look pretty good. His play is going to be solely on Trevor Lawrence. It looks like Travis Etienne is going to get a lot of those carries or just a lot of touches running the rock. But nothing really to write home about. Rico didn't really have too of a good of a game. I was kind of high on Rico even after all those signings, but he didn't really look all that great.
Yeah, I mean Zeke got a lot of those carries, got the goal line carry, got the touchdown. So I think Dowdle's probably going to be injury dependent, but not a bad handcuff to have, especially for that offense, which I think is looking more improved this year. But yeah, I do think solid team here from Dom. I know we spent a lot of time going through that one, but I
Yeah.
do agree with Labasi's take. This is probably going to be a scary team. I think this is one of Dom's better ones in the last year or two.
Yep. And then we'll go to Chewy's team, the last team. Not a great showing. He didn't have, I mean, he had two really low scorers, but all the rest of his guys, especially the wide receiver, tight end, flex, those three, just low double digits, which is good. But you kind of want those breakout games. Just low scores, even his high scores are low. Brees Hall 18 is his highest, which I mean is good, but just I don't know. I just nothing to get really excited about. If I was Chewy, I'm not. I mean, I'm not that mad about, or I'm not, worried about this team. Just nothing really to get excited for right now.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the quarterback position, Brock Purdy, not really a flashy guy. Probably
Mm-hmm.
not going to go out there and get you 20, 30 points on a regular basis. Just probably going to be real steady Eddie. And with Christian McCaffrey in there running the ball, it's going to be tough to get a lot of passes. But I mean, I think that's going to be just a respectable score coming out of him most weeks. I do like his running backs here, Brees Hall and Rashad. I, unlike you, did like Rashad White this year. I just think that Bucks offense is looking pretty decent. Even before week one, I was expecting them to look pretty good. They just got a lot of good pieces in that offense, and with Rashad getting those receptions out of the backfield, I just think he's going to be a pretty consistent guy, assuming that doesn't get taken over by what's his name?
Bucky.
Bucky. Yeah. Assuming he doesn't start bleeding into his touches too bad. I think Rashad does have a pretty decent year this year. Olave, I mean, they put up 47 points and Olave still only gets 3. That might be mildly concerning because they were still passing the ball a lot, but he just was not getting looked at. Neighbors, I mean, Daniel Jones couldn't have looked worse. The guy, and this is coming from someone who thought Daniel Jones was going to have a bounce back year this year, coming off that injury. Like he grew the beard out or whatever. Like he was looking like he was ready to be an NFL quarterback. But man, I was wrong on that because he
Yeah,
looked like dog shit.
yeah, he was bad. And I just want to say I wasn't low on Rashad White. I just there's a lot of articles and stuff that say he's just not as as good, not good with the ball, but consistent. That's not a really word, but he's efficient. He's not really efficient because he gets a lot of touches, but just his efficiency is really down for a running back with that many touches. But yeah, those two running backs were my running backs that won me the ship last year. So I mean, I can't be. I mean, I love those two guys. I can't not like those guys. But yeah, Malik Neighbors and then Zay Flowers, like he was getting a lot of balls thrown to him, but they were all like for like -2 yards, and then he would run for
Yeah.
like 6 yards. So it's just
Yeah.
like they weren't airing the ball out, and I don't know if that was just their game plan. He had 10 targets, so I mean he looked like he was the offense. Him and Isaiah Likely were the offense, but Zay Flowers just no efficiency there with all his touches because they were just not passing the ball that far downfield. I mean Kyle Pitts, he got a touchdown. I don't know if I was high or low on this guy. I mean, if he dropped to me and if I needed to tie it in, I would have got him. But yeah, 3 receptions, 26 yards, 3 targets. That's not that good. He did get a touchdown to save the day.
Well,
For
granted,
fantasy
that
wise,
Falcons offense looked
it looked
pretty
bad.
bad. Kirk Cousins on his new team just did not look like he knew what he was doing anymore. I don't know if it's because he lost Justin Jefferson, his security blanket, or what, but he just did not look like he was flowing very well in that offense. So you got to hope that he picks it up. As far as Zay Flowers goes, I mean, you can't be mad about 10 targets. Like Lamar's obviously going to be looking at him. That was a guy that I really wanted coming in this year. I think even with, all those passes in the backfield, he got quite a few receptions, 10 targets, and still comes away with an 11. I think Lamar just has to figure out the passing stuff. I mean, he just did not look super great, except for when he was throwing to Isaiah Likely, of course.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. This team is, I think, right now, week one overreaction. This team is looking very middle of the road. But I do think that he's got some potential here. I really like that running back duo. I think that Olave will pick it up. I would be a little concerned about Neighbors only because Daniel Jones just looked so bad.
Yeah, I mean, the silver lining with Neighbors is Daniel Jones did look so bad, and he still got double digits, which
That's
is
also true.
not bad. I mean, if Daniel Jones had a really good game, you'd probably see 100, and a touchdown, which is really good. So having 566 with 7 targets against or with Daniel Jones looking as bad as he did is I wouldn't be too mad about that. Um, I think Neighbors. I wasn't high on Neighbors where he was getting drafted, but I don't dislike the pick either. I just knew Daniel Jones sucks, so like I wasn't expecting a bounce back year from him. So I was trying to stay away from the Giants as much as I could.
Well, I'll
Um,
say one thing. I'd much rather have Neighbors right now than Marvin Harrison Jr. So, I
that's
mean,
true.
I don't have a lot of room to talk about that.
So that is very true. Harrison looked very bad, but we'll go to his bench. Kirk had a really down week. I don't know that Jags offense. I mean, thinking about that, I watched a lot of that game because I had a bet for the Dolphins to win, so I did watch a lot of that game. And the Jags offense just looked not great. Like they looked like they had the lead and they could have iced that game so much more, but their offense just looked so stagnant. They had a couple good drives, of course, because they scored 2 touchdowns. But I don't know, Kirk. I wouldn't worry about Kirk because I think he's gonna get found. He's one of those guys that just plays the slot pretty much and just gets open, and a nice little security blanket for Lawrence when he starts slinging the rock. But I don't know that he has another Giants guy on the bench or on the running back, Devin Singletary. I don't. This bench isn't really nothing to write home about right now, but I wouldn't be too worried about Kirk. I do like him as my 4th wide receiver. I'd like him as a flex, but him being a 4th wide receiver is not bad.
Yeah, I do think this team is going to get better than what this week showed. He's got the pieces in place. Just a tough week, not what we're used to seeing out of Chewy's team either. He's usually one of our stronger guys, and just a rough week one here with the 102. But I mean, it wouldn't have mattered if he put up a 120. He's still getting
Yeah.
beat because Dom just absolutely blew him out of the water.
Right, and I even texted Chewy after the draft, and he even let me read what he said. I'll give you the exact quote.
Oh, we got an inside scoop here.
Inside scoop. He was complaining about some stuff here, but wait, what did he say? Oh, he said, okay, quote, he said, I had probably my worst draft ever since being in this league.
Yeah, you know what? I would probably agree with that. Chewy is usually one of those guys you're looking out for to see what his team's going to look like.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, but like I said, I still think that team has some potential. Right now, it's very middle of the road, but they could turn it around. We'll see how some of these offenses improve after week one. I think week one's always tough because everybody's coming off the off season and you're still trying to kind of get that cohesiveness with your new offenses for a lot of the players. And yeah, we'll see what happens in week 2.
Yeah. So here's the standings. I mean, nothing really flashy about it. A lot of 1-0s and a lot of 0-1s. Well, half the league is 1-0 and the other half is 0-1. So, but I mean, just looking at this,
Great.
You have a 39% chance at making the playoffs, right? That's not too bad.
That is pretty bad, but I do not have the lowest chance. After that horrible week one, somehow Johnny still has a worse. I don't know how they calculate these percentages. It's all fucking probably so stupid. But I actually have more than Chewy as well. So
Sure, yeah, Chewy's
even there. But I don't know how they could say that because my team very clearly looked the absolute worst out of everybody's this week. But yeah, we're not feeling super great after week one here.
Yeah. So okay. So I got one question for you. I know my answer. So which team, I guess, other than yourself, are you the most worried about? Most like if you were that owner of that team. So So if you're the owner, which team are you most worried about?
I mean, I don't want to take the easy way out here, but I think I gotta say Johnny's right now.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, I think we both said this. I don't think Johnny has a bad team, but Johnny's team just looks the weakest right now. And he's got Keenan Coleman actually in this lineup and J.K. Dobbins. I was wondering if he would play them, but yeah, with Puka out and London just looking the way, and that Falcons offense looking the way it did, and even the Cincinnati Bengals, this team is a little worrisome. If I was Johnny, he's going to be looking for a big bounce back week and hopefully shut both of us up and hopefully calm him down.
Yeah. Well, and lumping myself into that, just to be fair, I
Right.
think I am as worried about my team after that week one performance as I am about Johnny's. I mean, both just rough week ones. That's all I can say. And for me, like I don't know how Johnny felt coming out of the draft, but I felt pretty good coming out of the draft. And to do that on week one, it doesn't feel good. And especially after having a terrible year last year, that is not the way I wanted to start this year. I think I told you and Lubasi this a couple of weeks ago, but I'm pretty sure that I've started 0-1 the last like 7 seasons in a row. Granted, I've had I had a run to the championship one of those years, so obviously that doesn't mean anything week one,
Right.
but it would have felt really nice to get a 1-0 on the board here. Couldn't shake it out. But flipping the script to a question now, what team are you the most worried about as an opponent?
Yeah, so I think my favorite team, like I said, was Jeff's team, but he's in the other division, so I'm not too worried about Jeff quite yet. So I mean, I'd have to probably still go intra-division if I'm worried about as a player, as a manager of my team. I'm more worried about Chris's team, of course. I think that Cooper Kupp is gonna just be a menace, and I think he's got a lot of good players around Kupp that he drafted. It's gonna be a good year for Chris. I think he's gonna be a very scary team.
Yeah, I think he's going to be up there. Between him, Dom, and Jeff, I mean, those are obviously after week one our 3 strongest looking teams right now. And of course, I have 2 of them in my division, which is not ideal. But yeah, I don't know. Week one overreactions, obviously, not going to be, everything's going to change once week 2 gets here. But yeah, I think I got to say, as of right now, it's probably Dom's team that I'm the most concerned about in this moment in time. I just think there's a lot of, even with his double team stacks, I think there's just a lot of heavy hitters on this team, and Kyler's going to figure it out. So yeah, I'm a little concerned about my division right now, having 2 of the heavy hitters at the top 1 and 2 spot with him and Jeff. I like both of those teams a lot. And then, yeah, obviously Chris's team is pretty scary too. So we've got a lot to watch out for here.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun season. I can't wait to get my first win to finally feel like it's back. You lose week one, it's like, oh man, that sucks. And then you get that first win though. You get the taste of a win. It gets the juices flowing.
It feels good.
My first win.
Yeah, we always, I think, put a benchmark on like if you want to make the playoffs, you're looking at probably 6 losses or less, depending on the year, obviously. So starting out 0-1, you're like, all right, well, I only got 5 more in the bank, so we're gonna have to figure it out sooner than later, or we are in trouble.
Yeah, 0-2 is probably not like I wouldn't like 0-2 is bad. Don't get me wrong, but like 0-2, I'm not too worried. But 0-3, you don't want to cross 0-3. That's a tough one to get back.
Yeah, if you're banking half your losses already in the first 3 weeks, it's going to be a long season, and you're going to be scrambling. The panic button, your hand's going to be on it. You're not smashing it yet, but your hand's on it for sure.
It is for sure. So yeah, it's going to be a fun year. I apologize for not getting some of the write-ups that I've usually done in past, but busy week, couple weeks with work and the kids being sick. So maybe I'll get something out this week or next week because I do like to have those in the history books. to look back on. So we'll see how see how much time I have today or tomorrow to maybe write something up. But
Yeah, and on that same note, I know we were pretty inconsistent with the pods last year. Definitely going to try to get at least one out weekly, be a little bit more consistent on that this year.
yeah,
And
I'm not
I,
expecting another kid in October. I think that's what kind of killed me was Cameron was
yeah,
born in October.
Jacob just cannot stop spreading that seed. He's a
I
madman.
think we're done. So I think we'll be more consistent this year. I promise.
Yeah, we will try to get one out every week. Hopefully everybody's still enjoying the pods. But with that, we will not take up any more time here. I think this was a great recap of everybody's teams. Hopefully everybody is in a good position with theirs. I know we got a couple nervous spots with a few of us, but week one overreactions, obviously things are going to change as we move forward.
Yep, I agree. So we will see you guys next week.
All right, fellas. Good luck in week 2 to everybody. Peace out.
Peace.